Hey guys, before I get going on this video, I'm working off of an agenda and I've got the agenda down in the doobly-doo. So if you want to follow along, just go down there and take a look at it. And now I turn you over to me. Hey guys, welcome to Coding After 50. Today we're going to talk about why and why not work in tech. And I've got a lot of pros, I got a lot of cons, and a lot of fears. Obviously, I think that unless you've got something better, you should probably be looking at moving yourself into tech. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying it's going to be fast. I'm just saying that 5 years from now, you will be happy that you've made the change. So let's talk about the pros. Why work in tech? First off, it's physically easy. You're typing and talking on the phone. That's what you do. But I'm not a fast typist. Coding speed has never been a limiting factor. All coding changes are 30 seconds and a couple of characters worth. No change in code takes more than 5 minutes. Figuring out where to put that change, that's where all the hours come in. So it's physically easy. I've got a standing desk, so I'm standing all day. But I can do this until I'm 105. And eventually, if I have to sit down, if I get to a point where I can't stand anymore, oh no, I sit in a chair. So I can do this for the rest of my life. As long as my brain is working. It's my one fear is what happens. It's fun and it's easy. Mentally it's fun, mentally it's easy if you have the right mental mind frameworks. Learning how to maximize how you think and how you learn is a skill. You actually have to learn how to learn. And what you know has gotten you to where you have gotten. But if you're here because you're kind of dissatisfied with where you've gotten. If you're happy, then thanks for being here, but I don't know why you're here. Here's a COVID-19 relevant one. It's physically independent. I work from my basement far away, 300 miles from my closest coworker. COVID-19 showed up and I'm like, fine. It's not affecting me. Well, I've got everybody in the house, but I've still got a job. I count myself very lucky. I recognize how lucky I am. Please don't think that I'm like gloating. This is a really hard time. It's hard on everybody. And I'm very present to the fact that I'm lucky that I've been working in my basement for the last 3 years. So lucky. I'm just saying that maybe you want to position yourself so the next time we get a pandemic, because my understanding is we're going to start seeing more and more of these, and we need to be able to self-isolate. So if you have to self-isolate, you can as a programmer. Okay, next thing. Learning is free. Free or low cost. Udemy has got tons of courses that, depending on the time of year, they're $10. Usually they're in the $100 to $200 range per course. But a couple of times a year, the tide drops and it's like $10 or $20 or, I don't think I've ever seen it below $9.95. And if you have an interaction with the instructors, they often have coupons that will get you a drastically reduced discount. And then there's just massive quantities of free resources. This resource, last week we had a video on how to put something up, how to take your text and put it into a web page. This week we're going to be looking at what does it take to set up a virtual machine. That's going to be a lot of fun. And again, it's easy. It's cheap, it's easy. And on top of that, there's plenty of people who want to help. When I started getting into programming and coding and computers 40 years ago, somebody was saying, there's these systems administrators on these various bulletin boards. And it's like, if you ask them for help, they're sitting there going, somebody needs me. And I'll tell you, it feels good to be able to help somebody take that step in their learning journey. So there's a whole lot of people who want to help you succeed. And like I said, don't have any money? As long as you have access to a computer. And at this point, you can learn on a tablet. If you can see YouTube, there's probably a way for you to learn how to code. There's probably a way for you to get your hands on a keyboard or some other tool to enter commands in and have those commands executed. It's not about typing. It's never been about typing. It's about breaking problems down into usable chunks. It's a totally different video. And the last pro is money. I was horrified to learn that in 2016, the median personal income was $31,099. That means if you took everybody in the United States and lined them up by income, and you went to the middle person in that line of people and said, how much did you make in the last year? They would say $15 an hour. What? 50%. That's a one person. You make way more than that in programming. You can make less than that, but even if you are making less than that, you won't be making less than that for long. Double that is considered a low income in programming. Really low. So just for taking care of yourself and your family, money doesn't make you happy. It's not about the money, but not having money will make you unhappy. I know I'm going to hit some people right, and this is like a trigger word. It's like, what is it? Money doesn't make you happy, but lack of money does make you sad. Now let's talk about the cons. Impostor syndrome. Impostor syndrome is the tech industry is rife with people with impostor syndrome. Impostor syndrome is where you believe that you shouldn't be where you are. You're making too much money. You're for whatever reason, and this affects people because, again, if you weren't coding, making more than $15 an hour is really hard. And you're making a whole lot more than that. And if you're going the self-taught route, you're making a lot more than some people with college degrees. Imposter syndrome, it's difficult to explain, but it's one of those where, imposter syndrome sucks, and we'll probably talk about that at a different time. There's other stresses. It can be stressful being a programmer. There's a lot of people who don't understand what you do, and they think if they don't understand what you do, it must be easy. And there's a lot of people who will, say, I need this done in 2 weeks, and you're looking at it and go, that's nice. That's 6 months worth of work. Not going to happen. And sometimes they will make noises about, you need to be, if you can't do it, we'll find somebody who will. And there are tools and tricks and things that can make it so that, A, you've got enough knowledge and enough resources to be able to call that and say, you know what, find somebody else. Because I can go down the street and make the same thing I'm making here. And that's the thing with these skills. That's part of what makes programming so wonderful. The skills are in demand. Is there a chance that AI is going to come along and destroy the software industry? Yeah, it's possible. It may be even probable. I mean, but it's not happening today. It's not happening tomorrow. Truck drivers are going to be out of work long before programmers will. And then it's just a matter of, can you stay above the curve? So that's a problem. Next problem is you're going to be spending 100 plus hours on your own time learning new things. That's 2 hours a week. Now, it may not sound like much, and it's not. There's 168 hours a week. Spend 2 of them on learning stuff. There are a lot of people who don't spend those 2 hours, and 2 years from now, when they're out of work, they're like, what happened? The market's saturated. There's no jobs for programmers anymore. The fact of the matter is, in programming, you do have to be constantly learning. 2 hours a week, 100 plus hours, and honestly, I think that's a low number. It might be 200 hours. That seems like a lot, but again, if you go back to that mental model, it becomes fun. I'm like an old geek. I haven't gotten to do like playing Dungeons and Dragons or any other type of role-playing game in probably 20 years. I'd like to. Haven't had the time. I think I mentioned 2008 wiped us out, and we've been going hard and fast. I'm actually getting to the point where I may be able to start gaming soon, and I'm excited about that. But I only bring that up because for me, my mental model is, as a programmer, it's the closest I'm going to ever come to being a wizard. I type in the command, I hit the return, and the screen goes wild, and the stuff gets done. And there's a whole lot to that. I mean, we're going to talk about, it's not just programming. There's an entire ecosystem of people that are required to make a program useful for people such that it's valuable. And then the final con is you pretty much got to relearn everything every 18 months. Technologies change. The technology you start with is going to be obsolete in 18 months. And you have to learn how to do everything you did with this one technology in this other technology. The flip side is it's actually the same. That's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of making sure that you're fluent in a bunch of languages. I'll get to why that's easy in a different video. Long story short, every language is the same. So that's the cons. There's a lot of stresses, 100 hours plus a year of study, and count on relearning everything every 18 months. And now let's talk about the fears. I'm too old. No. 2 to 3 years to be a senior dev might take you 5, but at the end of 5 years, if you're working, you're making more than $100,000. Period. That puts you in the top 10% of income earners in the country. I don't know how that translates to other places on the planet. I'm assuming it still puts you pretty high up. I'm not smart enough. Honestly, it's not the raw horsepower of the brain. It's how you use it, and there's so many tricks that people will look at you and say, you're so smart, I could never learn how to do what you're doing. It's a trick. There's ways of learning how to learn. There's ways of organizing the thoughts so that, yeah, you're solving problems that you used to not be able to solve, but it's how you think rather than how smart you actually are. Here's an interesting one for those of you who are over 50. I won't be able to leverage my experience. That one's actually kind of funny. Here's the thing. Your experience, unless you've been living under a rock for the first 50 years of your life, you have a pretty large depth of experience. And that experience has value. And figuring out how your knowledge can add value is going to be a trick. But it's there. Whatever you've been doing, there are things that you know that you think that everybody else knows, but they don't. You know that because you lived in that industry for so long. You know about that horrible thing that happened in 1984 and why that led to the change in 1989 in global regulations in that industry. I have no idea what exactly I'm talking about, but you do. You know, oh yeah, I remember that. Some of you are in catering, some of you are in construction, some of you are in transportation and logistics. All of you have got those things. Your industries have got a rich history. You still retain that. And when you can find a way of bringing that to the table, that just becomes a value add. That just is one more reason why, as a programmer, you're so valuable at that point. All right. And finally, what if I learned the wrong thing? You know, I spent all this time learning this programming language. What if it's the wrong one? I got the good news and the bad news for you on this one. It is the wrong one, and it doesn't matter. You're going to have to learn multiple programming languages. You're going to have to learn a lot of stuff. And if learning stuff scares you, that's okay. I go back to that whole thing. It's how you think about learning. It's a trick. So that's it today, family. I encourage you to take a few minutes, like and subscribe. If you have a friend who is over 50, or you know what, we're in the middle of COVID, if you've got a friend who's got nothing better to do and you find something hilarious about the way I say or do things, like the fact that I really think that the sound of my own voice is a wonderful thing to hear. If you want to pass me around to ridicule me, I'm good with that. But seriously, if you know somebody that this would make a difference for, please send it to them. I'm telling you, for the next 2 months, what is it? It's the end of March. We're not going anywhere until the end of May, people. We're not going anywhere. If you got a job now, great. If you don't have a job right now, you're probably not going to have a job until the July. I hate to break it to you. We're going to talk about how maybe you can find stuff. And I'm going to be interested if anybody has things about how to find jobs during COVID. I will be happy to pass those along. But, you know, pass this along. Come stay with me. Take a couple of minutes, and, you know, I went really fast, and there's a lot here in this one. If you can, down in the comments, put down the 1 or 2 things that you either liked a lot or you think I'm completely wrong on. Or if you have a question, what did you mean by this? I will be happy to answer that. So, family, again, thank you for being here. And, you know, the joy is in the journey.